Hello artists, today we are going to be creating an op art lesson and learning about some op artists. So friends, let's first look at the word op art itself. So let's break apart the word and look at the little parts of it. So here is op art. So what do we think op art could mean? Let's look at the first part, op. What could op be shortened for? How about opinion? Maybe pop? How about something that plays tricks on the eyes? Any hints? About op art. Oop. Let's see who got it right. So artist, op art means optical art. So optical art is a style of visual art that uses optical illusions. Op art works are usually abstract, and most of them usually use black and white for that very contrast you see. Well, as like this artwork next to it, there's black and white. So artists, but also op art has colorful artworks with contrasting colors, like complementary colors, which are across from each other on the color wheel. And also, op art usually gives the viewer the impression of movement, whether that is waving, spinning, swirling, or vibrating. So if we look at this artwork called Blaze 4 by Bridget Riley, if you look at it and kind of move your head back and forth, you can kind of see that the lines appear to move. They kind of look like they're vibrating on your eyes. It's just by the way the artist used the lines and those black and white colors, it looks like there's movement in her painting. Awesome. So artists, here's the first artist we are going to learn about. This is Victor Vasarely. He was alive from 1906 to 1997, and he is known as the grandfather of art, but he was also a Hungarian French artist. So by meaning the grandfather art, he was known as one of the founding fathers or creators of the movement of op art, which was around in the started in the 1960s. And a fun fact, Vasarely actually studied medicine at the University of Budapest before dropping out to embrace a career in visual arts. So it's never too late to embrace your passions. If you try out one thing, you can always definitely try out another and find where you are most happy. Like Victor loved being an artist, just like me. That's how I knew I wanted to become an art teacher, because I was most happy when creating art. So artists, let's look at this artwork. It's called Vega 3. It's by Vasarely. So this is a really cool op art because some parts look like they're popping out at you while others look like they're curving inward. So we can use the two words concave and convex. So that first word, concave, it has the word cave in it. So which side of the artwork looks like it's caving in? That one? Or how about this one? This side looks like it's caving inward, like it's someone popped it in. While this other side, it's convex. That means it's popping outward. So if you think of, I know a lot of you have poppets. If you can think of it that way, when it's concaving, it's like someone popped it inward, like you pop the puppet in, so it concaves, it caves inward. And if you pop it from the other side, it's convex, it pops outward towards you. Okay. And here's another example how convex is when it curves outward, and then concave is when it curves inward. Awesome. Okay, artists. Now let's learn about the artist we are going to be inspired by for our own artwork today, Bridget Riley. Bridget Riley was born April 24th, 1931, and is currently 90 years old today. And she is an English artist whose vibrant optical patterns paintings were central to the op art movement of the 1960s. And Bridget taught art for 2 years in 1956 and then became a commercial illustrator in 1958 and then became an artist full-time. So she shows how there's plenty of professions in the art world. There's so many options and ways you can make money through art. So artist, and then once she became a full-time artist, she traveled the world to study other artists, so to learn about their styles and how they painted. Just like how we're learning through Bridget and being inspired by her for our own project today. And also artist, she was influenced by Vasarely and worked on an exhibit with him. So I think it's really cool. Our two artists we're learning about today are connected and even collaborated together. So artists and Riley's innovations in art inspired generations of op artists and clearly are still inspiring artists today, like how we are creating op art inspired by Bridget. So artists, so here is some of Bridget's amazing op artwork. So we are actually going to be inspired by this almond-shaped one for our own artwork. So we will be using the same idea of drawing a shape and then having that kind of checkerboard alternating color effect. Here's an example of my teacher example. So you can choose any, today we'll choose any shape. Here I chose a heart. And then just like you would alternate colors when coloring in a checkerboard, we will alternate our colors for the outside and then add the opposite color in the same stripe once it hits the shape. So if I have a white stripe here, once I hit the heart, I will color that in black. But we can do other things if you want a little bit of a challenge. You can do multiple shapes. So to make the smiley face, I added my two circles and my half circle. Notice how it's unfinished. So if for my next line, how I have purple here, my next would be yellow. And then that slim line that's on top of that purple line, I'd put yellow in there. But we'll go more into those details in a bit. Okay. So when we're also choosing colors, that's very important for op art. So of course there's black and white, which has lots of contrast. Of course, black, dark, and then the white is our light for our contrast. But we can also use complementary colors. So complementary colors examples would be red and green. They are across from each other on the color wheel. Also blue and orange, purple and yellow. But we can also use the tertiary colors if you'd like. Those are the colors that are in between the secondary colors. So an example would be yellow-green and red-violet, yellow-orange and blue-violet, and red-orange and blue-green. Okay, and you can choose whatever colors you would like. Here's Bridget Riley's up close. You can see how that shape really pops out just by alternating the colors based on the stripe and when it hits the object or your drawing. So here's my heart example again. You can choose whatever shape you would like today. So of course you can do multiple if you're up for a challenge. So artists, our first goal will be to start with a shape. So here's an example. I first started by just simply drawing my heart on my paper. And then first step 2 would be to draw lines, equally spaced lines, all across the paper. So they go right all over your drawing or your shape of choice, all the way to the bottom. And we will use a ruler or a straight edge. If you have a folder or a notebook, you could use to draw our straight lines. We can also measure if you'd like to have them perfect distance apart. And then once we have all our lines on top of our shape, we will mark out which lines will be colored in on the outside and inside the shape. So like I said, we want to make sure whatever is in the shape is the opposite shade of what's on the outside. So if this is an X line, I would color that in all the way, but then when I hit the shape, I need it to be the opposite color. So here's an example when we start to color it in. Notice how at the top I started with coloring that stripe in all the way. So the next stripe was white, and then that next stripe on the outside we see it's black, but on that very top of the heart it's white because we want it to be alternating to give that cool op art effect. So then in the heart I would continue that pattern. I'd go white, black, until I reach the bottom, and then make sure they are opposite colors next to it on the outside as well. Okay, and then you would go color all the way until your paper is full. So right now we are going to draw it together. So if you get a piece of paper, a pencil, and a ruler, or if you don't have a ruler, that's okay. We can get a straight edge of like a folder or a notebook. But let's gather your materials, and you can pause this video at any time. Okay, I'm going to place my camera up for a better view. Okay, so artists, first let's pick your shape. I'm going to use artists, to start, I'm going to use a Sharpie, but I would like you to start with a pencil just in case you need to erase. So draw light before it's right. Okay, so I'm going to start with just a simple circle for this example. Just a circle. Okay, or actually that's more oval-like. Okay, now artists, I'm going to show you how to measure real quick, but if you feel confident, if you want to just do your best to equally space out drawing lines, go ahead. But I'm going to teach you how to measure to create equally spaced lines real quick. So I'm going to line up my ruler with the edge, making sure the 0 lines up with the edge. Actually, I'm the wrong way. Miss Como goofed. I'm going to make sure I do it on this side because I want the lines going across this way. So I'm going to, actually no, I was right. Silly me. Okay, so I'm going to line up my 0 with the edge, and then you can do every ½ inch or every inch to draw a tick mark. So I'm going to add on the ½ inch, then every ½ inch I'm going to add a little tick mark. And we're also going to have to do our tick marks on the other side of your paper, so we can then line up our ruler to make those straight lines across. Now on the other side here, I'm going to make my tick marks. Make sure you line up the 0 with the edge of your paper. I'm going to add my tick marks every ½ inch. Okay, now that I have my tick marks, I can use my ruler. I can line it up with those little helper lines and draw my straight lines across. So if you chose to not draw, you measure with a ruler and just add your lines with estimating how much space in between, you can skip ahead, but follow along with me if you are still at this step. Maybe you want to start brainstorming what colors you would like to use. I personally really like purple and yellow together. And of course, black and white have that really nice contrast and are like the OG artists, Victor and Bridget, who they have lots of artworks that were with black and white, and those make an awesome contrast effect. And artists, if you have markers, those would make a really nice, bright, bold, graphic look. But if you can of course just make sure, if you're using crayons, make sure you're coloring in all the way, pressing hard to really make sure you get that awesome solid color, or with colored pencils as well. Okay, last line. Okay, now artists, I'm going to stick with black and white, but if you want, you can do a different color scheme. But I'm going to mark out every other on the outside. So I'm going to add an X, so I'm going to go, so because I want black, white, so on the lines I want black, I'm going to add an X. Or you can add a squiggle, like a squiggle, to show that's what you need to color in. You can do the same on the other side, but I know these lines with the X that I need to color in all the way. So then once I get to my shape here, I can see I know this is black on the outside. So if I once I'm gonna make sure I take my time later on to color it in fully. But if I know this is a black line here, I know this one's white. So then in the inside, this will be a black line inside my oval. This is black, this is white. So then once you know which is black within your shape, you can alternate. So I know this is black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, black. That little bit will be white. Actually, so this little bit will be black up here too. So once you know what colors are in your shape, I would suggest to color those in so it makes coloring in the outside easier, so you know which lines to definitely skip over when coloring in the outside. Then artists, I really want you to take your time to make sure you're coloring in very carefully, making sure you're going all the way to the edges but not going over, because the crisper it is, the better that your op art effect will be. So I'm not going to painstakingly stay here and have you guys watch me color in my shape. This is your time now to color in your own artwork and make sure you're alternating the colors, just like you would be coloring if you'd color in a checkerboard. So if this was a square and that was another square next to it, just make sure they're alternating, just like you would when coloring in a checkerboard pattern. So artists, I hope you have a fun time with this. Stay creative. If you want to start small and do a small practice run first, that is totally okay. If you want to start little, like on a half piece of paper to practice, go for it. And then you can commit to a big piece of paper. But have fun, stay creative. I can't wait to see your op art creations.